Hey everybody, it's me, John Anthony Chihawk Soltero. I am the anti-hero, and I am here flipping on 96 Studio Nerd Art, who said they stole from me, and I stole from Dresser's Comics and Things, who stole from a whole bunch of other people. So what 96 Studio Nerd Art just recently did was it's Cody and Cisco, and they each chose their top 5 collectibles. Well, I'm just one guy, but I'll see their top 5 collectibles and I will raise them by 5. So I'm going to show you my top 10 collectibles. I recently did a top 50 comics in my collection, and none of these are single issue comics. In fact, there is two graphic novels, and one of them has an even better story than the other, or a much more personal story. But I'm going to start with the one that's going to be hardest for me, I believe, for most anybody to top. But at the same time, I want to close it back up so that it's nice and safe and secure. So from 2005, Wizard World Los Angeles, which was my graduation present from my dad for finishing college, I bring you my Bruce Timm Batman, the animated series, Batman head sketch. Bruce was sitting at the DC booth. I was looking at the booth right next to the DC booth. There was a guy talking to him, and he had, I believe it was the first volume of the recently released Batman, the animated series DVD set, and he was having Bruce sign all of them. I didn't know Bruce Timm was going to be there. I did, however, have this sketchbook, which also, just to say, this sketchbook was given to me with a slipcase by my brother-in-law's mom, and it was made especially for me by Marilyn Poff. And I decided a long time ago, it was given to me my senior year in college, which was just about 1 year before I started getting these sketches. And I decided there was no way I was going to be drawing in this book, just because it was too special to me. So I walked up to Bruce Timm and I told him how monumental Batman the Animated Series was for me. When it started in '92, I was 14, so perfect timing for a really solid animated show to kind of change the course of my life. And not ironically, but I had just graduated from college with a bachelor's in animation. So it was kind of like a cool segue. Now, from that same show, I'm gonna show one other collectible from that exact same show. My dad bought the VIP pass, which meant on Saturday and Sunday, me and the other VIPs were allowed to go in early. For whatever reason, that didn't mean going in onto the floor. It meant getting in line inside the convention center. However, that did give itself a pretty interesting opportunity. And it was, one of them was you could choose between 2 autograph signings, and they were side by side at the same time. And one was then Marvel quasi cinematic universe executive producer Avi Arad, and the other, arguably the father of Marvel Comics. And there's a lot of controversy in that statement. Publicly, he is very much the godfather of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee. And I did get a Stan Lee autograph. I got 2, actually, because you could get 2 things signed, but it was in my Marvel Masterpieces, The Hulk, by him and Jack Kirby. It was the first 6 issues of the original Hulk miniseries before it went to Astonishing Tales, I believe, and then back to the Incredible Hulk with 102 in 1968 with those big premiere issues. The really fun thing about the Stan Lee story is waiting in line. I'm maybe like 12th or 15th in line. He comes up, people start cheering, hooting and hollering and everything like that. There were people getting stuff signed that he had nothing to do with, like Amazing 129. He wasn't even writing the books back then, or by that time. So I get to my spot. I hand my really, really old school, and this was '05, so I don't even know how state of the art this was back then. It was probably a 1 or a 2.0 megapixel camera. And if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, there is the picture, the proof that I met Stan Lee. And in that picture is my sidekick, Agnew J. Pennyworth. And so I get over, I ask him to sign the books. He signs them. I go to, I ask him to take a picture. He says, fine. I hand the camera to the person who's helping. I line up and I crouch down next to him at the table and I take Agnew out of my bag and I pose next to him like that. And I kid you not, he looks at Agnew and he's like, what is that? And I was like, he's my sidekick, Stan. Don't worry about it. And I just lean in to take my picture, pigtails and all. Like it's a great picture from '04. But it's just I don't know, a lot of fun, and a great story. And then I always tell the story now as he then immediately stated that he had created Agnew J. Pennyworth and the entirety of the anti-hero verse, and that's kind of an inside joke. So take with it what you will. This one's an extremely personal one for me. In 2013, I went to Phoenix Fan Fusion. I believe I had met Katie Cook at that point. Might have been the first time I met her. She did a couple of different sketch cards for me. I will show those at another time. That'll probably be my favorite art pieces, book or video. This is when I met Mike Norton. Mike Norton is a writer and artist. He's working on Grumble. He's working on Battle Pug for Image. Grumble's coming out through Albatross. He's done, I believe, at least one issue of the new Goon through Albatross, Exploding Funny Books. And this was the collected of the first series of, I believe he did Battle Pug as a web comic. I got the one that must have gotten right on the top of the box when he took it out. I was a little dismayed that it was kind of scratched and cut, but I didn't notice it until afterwards. Of course, he signed it. The reason this is so personal to me is because came home on Sunday from Phoenix Comic Con back then, and my mom had dropped my dogs off back at the house, and Gurry and Foley, it was Gurry, Foley, and Sabu at that point. Gurry and Foley came running out of the back room. Sabu was nowhere to be seen. So like I walked into the back room and Sabu was just laying on one of the dog beds, and he looked really, he looked like he might be sick. And so he had had an accident and, put him in the tub, gave him a bath, washed the dog bed, clipped his little toenails, sat down on the bed with him, like planted right by my hip because that's always where he was. A lot like Grayson is now, actually. And we read Battle Pug. The very next day, I wake up and the accidents had turned to him hemorrhaging, and rushed him to the vet. They pumped him full of fluids. He seemed like he was okay. The doctors were like, we don't know what's going on. And that was the day I had to put Sabu down and say goodbye to him. So this is extremely personal for me because it's a story about a giant battle pug. Sabu was a rat terrier teacup chihuahua, but he was absolutely fearless, just like this dog. And he was the first called Bubba. He was not the first Bubba, but he was the first one I called Bubba. And so this book holds a huge special place in my heart because it was the last experience I had with him. And I get to spend one last night with one of my best friends. So not to go on a down note, this is kind of a twofer. I don't remember the name of the company because I already cut the tags off of these guys, but my Leatherface and Jason dolls, These are phenomenal. They don't stand up very well. I should probably get little doll stands for them. Leatherface is hunched over, as you would if you were Leatherface, because that's just how he was. Great detail into the masks. Of course, they gave Jason both eyes, which is kind of goofy, but Leatherface comes with his chainsaw that he can actually hold with both hands. His cowboy boots. Ooh, oh, buddy, I'm sorry. Are you okay? You okay? I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, well, that was, Grayson's okay. The chainsaw just ricocheted off of the cone. So the cone actually saved him. He's all right. You're doing okay, bud. Anyways, the Leatherface was given to me at the time by my then girlfriend, Jessica, who is also the writer of Fuzzy Face. Venus of Necro is how she wrote the book under. And then a couple years later, I found Jason, and I was just like, my matching set, because Leatherface, Jason used to be my number one, Leatherface became my number one, Jason is now my very, very, very close number two. But these are just phenomenal dolls, and I need to find a way to set them up. So there's that. This next one is the lone figure in the set, or in the list. The original Batman the Animated Series, or actually The Adventures of Batman and Robin, Harley Quinn. Back in the mid to late 90s when this figure came out, it was like 97, I believe. Let me see. 97, yep. I spent the better portion of a year trying to find this figure. And I actually ended up finding 3. It recently sold the loose one, the one that I opened. I also sold the other carded one that I have, and I think I'm going to keep this one. So, yeah. It was one of the most sought after figures in that era. And at times, I don't know, I think it shot up to like 50, 60, maybe even $70. Now you can find them around eBay for, 10, 15 bucks. Shipping is probably going to be the most damaging to you on that. But I remember the chase and looking for it and going into every toy store and going to the swap meet and the indoor swap meet. And when I was out of town one time, I went into a toy store or like an antique and collectibles store, and they were like, we don't carry anything like that. So this next one is something that could probably also go on my list of like top 5 most expensive things I purchased on eBay. And that would be my ECW World Heavyweight Championship belt. Now, some people might say this is not a collectible. I would argue otherwise. Action or wrestlers are just about the closest thing to real life superheroes. They have action figures, they have t-shirts and merchandise, they have movies, they have comic books. So ECW never got comics, but the tie-in to this belt is that the wrestling promotion inside the comic book euthanasia is very much based on ECW. It's called Triple X. It's run by Gurry, and Nash is kind of one of the stars, but he's kind of like their Tommy Dreamer, who just fights and fights and fights, and he's like not the most gracious or graceful tactician in the lot, but he's pretty damn tough. I paid extra because I got this in. I don't remember when I got this, but I paid extra to make sure that I got a belt that was made during ECW. And this one's copyright is actually 2000, copyright Extreme Championship Wrestling. This is not a WWE replica. This is an ECW replica belt, which just makes it more awesome. I mean, I think I I don't know how much more I paid for it than I would have for like a WWE one, but totally worth it. Keeping in on the wrestling collectibles is a twofer. And give me just a second here. You might recognize this guy. It's Mr. Sacco. Hand drawn by the one and only Mick Foley. And when we got the Mr. Sacco, he asked if we wanted him regular or busted wide open. So he drew blood all over him and stuff like that. He signed him to me and my then girlfriend Jessica. I spent so much money at his table, probably like $150 with the Mr. Sacco, getting a couple of novels signed. We got the digital picture. We got the Polaroid, which I have no idea where that is. So, great. I also drew a picture of him as Cactus Jack, and he signed it, and the person helping him was just like, that'll be $20. And Mick just like looked at him, and he closed the sketchbook, and he's just like, you brought this, where are you from? And I'm like, Tucson. And he's just like, you brought this all the way from Tucson. I'm like, no, here. Because the celebrities are allowed to sign stuff for free if they want. They don't have to charge, but he chose, to sign that for free. And then he gave one of the 8x10s from the famous IWA King of the Death match, where he went like full Muda. He signed that as like a bonus because we spent so much. But the other side of this, so I took 2 books. I took his first volume autobiography, Have a Nice Day, Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks, and his very, very first novel, Timm Brown, which is actually one of, if not my favorite book of all time. This is kind of like a modern Catcher in the Rye. It's that good. It didn't sell super well because people wanted the autobiographies and stuff like that. So we're standing in line. Jessica was holding Timm Brown. I was holding the autobiography, and I look, and everybody's got the autobiography. And I was just like, no, we're switching. Both of them are signed to me, but I was just like, he's going to be super impressed that I've got the novel and not just the autobiography. And when I asked him to sign it, he was just like, a novel by Mick Foley. And got him to sign it to me. Honestly, like one of my favorite novels of all time. It's hard to read at times because it's very sad, but he's a phenomenal writer, and he's not just a guy who can tell jokes or fall off of things that are really high up or bleed extensively, or even tell stories about his wrestling career. Like, he can write. This guy can write. I believe he graduated from college with a degree in English or literature or something like that. This one is kind of a weird collectible, and this is from 2007 San Diego Comic-Con. It's a picture I drew, and it's signed by Kane Hodder. It's kind of, there we go, that's a little bit better. Kane Hodder is my favorite person who ever played Jason Voorhees. He was at San Diego Comic-Con in 2007. Super, super nice guy. And when I had him sign this, I don't think I had finished the entire sketch. And he was just like, you need to finish this. And I was just like, yeah, no problem. Like the night before, I think, we were sitting outside waiting for a panel or something. And I was like sketching in my sketchbook. And I was like, he's going to be here tomorrow, so I'm going to draw this picture. And then, drew it. And then he's just like, finish it. So I think maybe I should ink it. But I mean, this was drawn 12 years ago or 13 years ago, so I don't know if I should. There's like almost nothing else in here. There's a sketch of Rob Van Dam on the next page because he was also at San Diego Comic-Con. But this is number 7. Or no, this is number 8. Okay, so number 8. Punisher, Sega Genesis, the arcade game. I don't know how many of you have played this as a side-scrolling brawler from the 90s. What is this? This is 94. This is when it came out for the Genesis. I think it came out for the arcade a few years prior. I remember one time going to Golf and Stuff, and if I had had 75 more cents, I would have beat the game. And it may have been the first time I ever beat an arcade game. I was on the Kingpin level. I had him down to about third health. And if I had had maybe even just one more round, I could have, one more quarter, I probably could have taken him out. But yeah, this is super fun to play. You can play as either Punisher or Nick Fury, but like, you know, it's kind of like the David Hasselhoff Nick Fury, so why would you even want to play as Nick Fury? The cool thing about this is 2018, I got a like a clone Genesis that you can plug into your high-def TV with HDMI. And so now this opens up all the way on my TV, and it's freaking awesome to play on that. Still haven't beaten it yet because you really almost need 2 players because you only get 3 lives through the whole thing, I think. So, but this is a super fun game. I don't play games much, but it's a lot of fun, and also very hard to find with not just the case, but it comes with the booklet, and then it's got the Capcom information card that you can mail away. Not that any of that stuff's super important to me. Like the instruction booklet's really cool, and the case is phenomenal. Number 9 is a piece of artwork. This is something I bought off of eBay based on my favorite comic book of all time, Teenagers from Mars. I have been bugging the artist for years on Facebook to do an original piece for me of Macon and Madison from the book. He occasionally opens up commissions. I'm thinking of asking him if he will do it. Lives in Portland, so I mean, Oregon and Washington were like the areas first hit really hardest with COVID. And if he's, you know, open to it, I'd like to commission him to do a piece. It is Madison from Teenagers from Mars. Like, this is the punk rock princess. If you have not read Teenagers from Mars, I think my next video is gonna be telling you about my favorite comic book of all time, Teenagers from Mars. This is one of the greatest books I've ever read. It's so fluid, it's phenomenal. So the story itself is about a small town called Mars, and these kids live there. They start a comic book prohibition to stop these kids from grave robbing because that's the impetus to buy comic books. And Macon, who's the protagonist, is also doing an independent comic book, and his book is confiscated. And along the lines, he runs into Madison Lee. And Madison Lee is a really cool definition of strong female protagonist. And I found this on eBay, and I way underpaid for it. And I wish I'd gotten it directly from Rob, but I'm going to try to get one from him anyways. I don't know, this is from 2004. It's just phenomenal. The last piece is very, very personal. I don't know how much you can get more personal than that. Battle Pug, but this is Chief Chirpa. No, this is Logray. This is Logray of the Ewoks from Return of the Jedi. This is the original Logray. This is not a Power of the Force redo. This is the original one from '83. this come out? Yeah, 83. It's got the stamp on it. I got this at the Tucson Toy Show a couple weeks back. And the reason this figure is so special is because with Sabu, Guri, and Foley, they all took different Star Wars names and personas. And as Ewoks, Sabu was Wicket, Guri was Chief Chirpa, and Foley was Logray. So they kind of match in terms of their coloration. So finding this figure, if I can find a Wicket and I can find a Chief Chirpa, that would be really, really cool as well. But finding this, was the last thing I purchased, and definitely had to get it because he goes up on the shelf next to a Power of the Force R2-D2, and I also called Gerber D2. So yeah, this is my top 10 collectibles. Anybody else want to throw down and do top 10 collectibles, top 5 collectibles? Just keep the tag going, and let's see what you got. Thanks. And until next time, you guys take care of yourselves. It's a crazy world out there. Don't go out unless you have to. Wash your hands. But mostly just kind of be mindful of how you're feeling. We have a tendency to want to reach out to other people and see how they're doing. But as I've told myself and I've told other people, you cannot save the world if you cannot save yourself. And this is a very trying time for a lot of people. And not to be morbid or down or anything like that, this was a fun video to make. But you got to take care of yourself. If we're going to get through this, we each have to take care of each other, yes, but we have to take care of ourselves. So, hoping you have a good weekend. Take care. Stay anti-hero strong.